So it has been less than 3 weeks since Super Mario Bros. Wonder launched on the Nintendo Switch, the first brand new 2D Mario experience in many years. Of course, there was a lot of hype and excitement in the build-up to the release of the game, and as we all know, it was only revealed this past June in a Nintendo Direct. And something I've recently commented on, Nintendo is so good about doing this, it only took them 4 months from the reveal of the game to actually release the game to the public. And now that it's been over 2 weeks since it released, most of us have had a chance to get our hands on the game, and many of us, myself included, have even completed the game. And so now we can start to kind of look back on it and parse through our thoughts and consider the goods and the bads and the pros and the cons, and even, which is the purpose of this video, to make comparisons to prior Mario games. Now obviously by the title of this video you can tell exactly what comparison I'm making. I want to discuss a comparison between Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Super Mario Bros. Odyssey. Now this is of course an opinion piece, right? You can kind of frame this kind of in the umbrella of a review for both games, even though it's not really a review. I actually kind of discussed that when it comes to Mario Wonder in a more recent video. This is more me taking the two brand new Mario games that were released on the Switch, and we're talking about main games. We're not talking about Luigi's Mansion 3, we're not talking about the Mario and Rabbids games, we're not talking about ports of 3D World or New Super Mario Bros. Wii U or any of that stuff. We had a brand new 3D game with Mario Odyssey, and now we have a brand new 2D game with Mario Wonder. And so again, the purpose is really for me to kind of compare the two new Mario games that have released on the Switch in this generation, and talk about why I personally, as a lifelong Mario fan since I was a kid in the 1980s, why I think Mario Wonder is the better game, or at least the game that I personally prefer. So again, this isn't me telling you to agree with me, this is just me wanting to share my opinion and present my case as a fan of both games on why I think Mario Wonder is maybe the better game and the game that I enjoyed more. I think that might be a kind of controversial take. I'm sort of expecting a lot of people to disagree with me in the comments, and that's okay. I mean, you've got two great games, so you can't really pick incorrectly, right? But I do think it's an interesting and kind of fun conversation to have, so I want to talk about that. First and foremost, I think we pretty clearly need to just talk about Mario Wonder itself. And like I said, in one of my more recent videos, I did spend some time talking about my thoughts on the game. And I'll just quickly reiterate and summarize some of that here, which is that I think it's absolutely a fantastic game, especially now that I've completed it. When I made my last video, to be fair, I think I was only on World 4. And since then, like I said, I've beaten the game, so I have the whole game kind of as context here. And, you know, I wasn't super dying for like a new 2D Mario game until I actually saw the game revealed, and I got more and more excited the closer we got to it. And after playing and completing it, I'm absolutely in love with Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Now, I am a sucker for the 2D platforming genre. It's probably my favorite genre of all things gaming. And obviously Nintendo are one of the many kings of the 2D platforming genre, and they really pioneered it and perfected it, you know, many decades ago. And so to me, the strength in Mario Wonder is the variety and the creativity. You know, I talked about how it looks great, how the music is fantastic, and that's all true. It is a great visual improvement over the new Super Mario Bros. Games. They breathed a lot of new life and freshness into it visually and audibly when it comes to the music and whatnot. But as I had mentioned in my prior video, I liken Mario Wonder to Mario Galaxy in the sense that I think both of those games are idea factories. Every single level is bursting with so many new crazy concepts and gameplay mechanics, and whereas Galaxy relied on kind of the motion control of the Wii Remote and the gravity-defying planet hopping, Mario Wonder is really hinged on the Wonder Flower and how every single level offers the opportunity to temporarily change it into some other kooky gameplay mechanic temporarily until you finish that section and get a new Wonder Seed, which allows you to progress through the game and the map. And to my shock, because I didn't know how this would play out, you know, when we were watching previews beforehand, to my shock, the Wonder Flower mechanic almost completely delivered. There were no repeats as far as I could tell, and every idea was unique and fun, and some of them were certainly more stressful than others. But, you know, at the end of the day, when I look back on all of the game and all of the different Wonder Flower mechanics, it really impressed me, and I found it to be so much fun. Now, I talked about my few negatives about the game, and there are some in a way, and they're not really all that big of a deal. Really, one of them is just the world map. While it looks really cool and is very well thought out, I think it's a little bit too cumbersome and kind of messy. I actually, I say that it was well thought out. My description of it would actually be that they maybe overthought the world map, and we didn't need what are they called? The Petal Islands or whatever in the middle to be this weird in and out weaving you're doing between the worlds, circling where Bowser's ship was. And it just was a little bit, it looked cool, and each area was different, and so I enjoyed that part of it. But I think that Mario 3D World did a better job of the same kind of world map they were going for than what Mario Wonder did. And the only other real negative I have is that a lot of the levels were just too short. I almost would have preferred slightly less levels to have slightly longer levels, if that makes sense. In fact, I really didn't like that some of the levels were just like challenges that took you like 40 seconds, and you have to go, navigate the world map, select the level, go into the level, do a thing for 30 seconds, you got the seed and you're done. And to me, I'm like, man, did that need to be its own level on a map? Why didn't that become another section or secret to find within a larger actual level within a world? Very similar to how the Donkey Kong Country Returns games do it. I think that would have been better, just in my opinion. And even a lot of the main levels were a little bit on the shorter side too. So you do a lot of hopping in and out of the world map to a level, world map to a level, and it feels like it happens so frequently because the levels are short. Again, those are really my only my negatives, and I don't even think they're that big of a deal. I really feel like the game is like a 9 out of 10 or a 9.1 out of 10. I absolutely loved it. Then, of course, we come to Super Mario Odyssey, one of the most popular Mario games, one of the most popular and successful Switch games, a game that has insanely good reviews, much better than even Mario Wonders, which itself had fantastic reviews. And I honestly think that at the end of the day, Mario Odyssey will probably still have sold more than Mario Wonder. I could be wrong, but my prediction currently, before we've seen sales numbers, is I don't think Mario Wonder is going to surpass Mario Odyssey. So we'll wait to see how that turns out. Doesn't necessarily speak to the quality, it's just something that I wanted to bring up, and so we'll see what actually happens with the sales numbers. But when it comes to Mario Odyssey, man, I've talked about this many times on the channel throughout the years, and even on some podcasts. And look, I love Mario Odyssey. It's a great game. I own it. I purchased it day one. I've completed it all the way up to the first Bowser boss fight, the main one. I didn't do any of I didn't complete the game after that, I should say. I did continue to collect some moons and unlock some of those last levels, those worlds to go to. But I haven't beaten, like, the second final phase of that game, and I honestly really have no interest in it because I don't want to go through the boss rush mode thing that they include. It's just not interesting to me personally. But look, I put in like 60, 70, 75 hours into the game, so I know that game extremely well. I have hundreds upon hundreds of moons, even though I don't have all 1,000, I'm admitting. And so Mario Odyssey is definitely a very good game, and it did a lot of things really well. But I've also said many times over the years that personally I find it to be a tad overrated when people talk about it being this incredible masterpiece and one of the best games ever made. Now, I have no interest in making this come off like a Mario Odyssey bashing session because I truly think the game is like an 8.9, 9.0 out of 10. It really is a fantastic game that I loved, but, I have critiques of Mario Odyssey, and I think that the main one I've always fallen back on is that after I've completed the first Bowser battle, that first kind of tentative ending to the game, the way a lot of Mario games have, like Mario 64, for example, the problem is the way they crafted all the worlds around so many different moons to find. I found after completing that first Bowser battle, which was incredible, by the way, I absolutely loved it. I was like screaming in my seat playing it the very first time. Going back and trying to continue playing after that and rediscover the more strange moons that are a little bit harder and weirder to find after the fact, I found it boring. So to me, it's a game where the longer it asks you to play and keep finding the hundreds upon hundreds of moons that they have scattered throughout the game, I got more and more bored. I actually didn't find as much interesting things to do when I would go back to all the different worlds to try to find the more obscure moons. And even before that, when you're playing it the first way through, you're stumbling upon moons, the easier moons, so frequently that it kind of makes the reward of finding them totally null and void, and just in my personal opinion, far less exciting than completing a level to achieve the one moon at the end of a very complicated or fun run. Now, I'll never deny the creativity and the variety of worlds. I did love the world maps and all of the different worlds to go to. I thought they were very fun, and the fact that they created little mini open worlds, you could say, was really cool. It made me wish for a large, complete, single open world. Something that I know Bowser's Fury is, and Bowser's Fury is of course worth mentioning simply because it is a new Mario experience that was created on the Switch, even though I personally can't put it in the same category as Odyssey and Wonder because it's just an extra thing, very short, tacked on to another old game. But I know that that game operated itself in like a big open world, and I think that that's very cool. I would love to see a future main Mario game do that. And so Mario Odyssey's attempt to do that with the levels was cool and fun, and they were all very different, and the graphics were incredible, and the music was all very good. And we have to talk about Cappy. Cappy didn't fully deliver on what I think the potential was, but it did get very close, and there were some things about using Cappy I didn't enjoy, but I enjoyed most of them. And I thought that in a lot of ways, Cappy was a pretty well-realized mechanic that did feel fresh, to give Mario Odyssey credit here. It was a very fresh concept. Like I said, it worked more often than it didn't for me. And so that stuff was really great. I just come back to the fact that the sheer amount of moons was so uninteresting to me. That change to the formula, I know what they were going for, but finding 1,000 moons across these whatever 10, 12, 15 levels are in that game, you know, it wasn't bad, it just wasn't amazing to me. And when I compare it to my favorite 3D Mario experiences, the Galaxy games and Mario 64, to me it just didn't compare to finding stars and shines and whatnot in those older 3D Mario games. The moons in Mario Odyssey, having 1,000 of them, it just got really tedious and boring to me after so long. And so now that you've heard me kind of discuss the pros and cons and how I personally fall down on each side of the discussion here between Mario Wonder and Mario Odyssey, hopefully it's making a little bit more sense where I'm coming from. And you know, going into the Switch generation, if you would have told me there's going to be an epic new 3D Mario game and an epic new 2D Mario game, and you're going to prefer the 2D game over the 3D game, I never would have believed you. And so again, it's not about bashing Mario Odyssey, it's kind of more about celebrating Mario Wonder and the triumphs I think that game actually has. And yes, I'm biased because I love 2D platformers, but make no mistake, I love 3D platformers and 3D adventure games as well. And like I said, I'm an old man from the 80s, so I loved all of Mario and the whole franchise ever since it was first introduced. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the franchise, so there really is no bad Mario game or Mario experience for me, just because I might have preferences over others. And so I just want to really drive home the point near the end of this conversation that I think Mario Wonder really is a pretty triumphant achievement, man. It's not like a 10 out of 10. It's not the most mind-blowing game I've ever seen or played, of course, but I think they executed a new 2D Mario platforming experience so perfectly, because Mario has a lot to live up to. It's big shoes to fill every time a new game is coming out. And you would think it would be easy for them to drop the ball on a new experience, especially going back to revisit a 2D Mario game in the era of 3D gaming. But it's just one of the many things that to me stacks on top of all the other positives of Mario Wonder, something I did not anticipate before I finally played the game, that makes it so incredible. You know, like I said, it's like a 9.1 out of 10 to me. I'm not calling it a 10 out of 10. It's a damn good game and one of the best games of the year and one of the best games on the Switch for sure. But they still did something so impressive. And I love the visual style. I love the personality. I love the variety. I love the Wonder Flower gameplay. I love all that stuff. You know, the other negative I didn't talk about is I would have liked other characters. It's time to have Wario and Waluigi in games. We don't need 3 Toads and 3 Yoshis. That is just ridiculous to me. There are other characters to pull from, and so that's just another minor annoyance that doesn't really affect the overall gameplay experience, but it is just kind of a silly thing like, what are you doing, Nintendo? You could have taken 1 Yoshi and 1 Toad out of the game and made it Wario and Waluigi, and people would have lost their minds. I want to play Waluigi in a video game so freaking bad, and I'm not talking about a sports title. I mean an action, adventure, platforming Mario game where I can be Waluigi. I want that so freaking badly. And this was your opportunity, Nintendo, and you threw it all away with a bunch of Toads and Yoshis and freaking Nabbit. So anyway, I don't want to end on the negative, to end on the positive. Wonder is amazing. Odyssey is also very great, but I think Wonder rises to the top. And so I want to give it credit. For me, a 2D Mario game is better than a 3D Mario game on the Switch, and that's a pretty big deal. So this is what I think and why I think Wonder is the slightly better game to Odyssey. Tell me what you think. Like I said, I'm sure most people will disagree, but I hope we have a fun debate and a conversation in the comments below. So that's what I think about it. Share your thoughts, and that's about it.